the numbers suggest otherwise. So that is the problem that we have as Kenyans. We want to believe, or we want to imagine that the narrative that is being woven, or the discourse that we are having, is actually true. But you look at the numbers, yes, and from a government's perspective, assuming that the role of Kimani Ichung'wah, of course, is to defend the government, then the fact of the matter is this, that you look at the budget deficit. Budget deficit has come down to 4.4% from a high of 10%. Yes? If you look at inflation, inflation was running to, in January it was around 9.9%, just under 10%. Today it is 6.9%,
6.9%, yeah,
which is within the limit of what the target is for the Central Bank of Kenya. It is 5% plus minus 2.5%. So it's either between the rank of 2.5% and 7.5%.
Yes.
So if you're speaking from a government perspective, the truth of the matter is that the numbers seem to suggest that that is what is happening. You look at the numbers coming out of KRA.
Yes.
KRA in September collected 170 billion, the highest. It has never been collected that kind of money. Look,
but still missed
no, we're going with the numbers.
But still missed their target, John. That's exactly
what you set targets high, yes, and then you achieve within a certain limit.
Yes.
Yes. So you say, I'm going to collect 10 billion, knowing full well that is the target. But if you do 8 billion, you're doing okay. That's why I'm telling you, the problem is this, that when you look at the numbers, and that is what government is basically looking at, if you look at the numbers coming out of the Central Bank of Kenya and National Treasury, is that the numbers look good. And that is what basically Kimani is saying, which is very, very different from having those conversations or reality. The truth of the matter is inflation is down, prices are coming down.
Yes.
And if you look at the last example that you were talking about, oil, we know that for every liter of oil, we pay 5 shillings and 40 cents, what is called the fuel development levy. Yes, and that is where the subsidy comes from. So we actually pay for these money. It is not coming from government. What government is simply saying is, we were on this path where we were borrowing more and more every time.
Yes.
Yes, and the idea is you need to bring this borrowing down for you to stabilize yourself. And then it's just like I tell people, think of it as the way you would behave with your own personal finances. What happens when you spend more than you earn? You're going to end up in trouble. And that is what we've been doing. Under Jubilee government, as much as President Ruto, of course, we cannot exonerate him because he was the deputy president, we were running budget deficits of about 8% per year. That's how we ended up with 10 trillion shillings debt. And you remember last time I told you, Benjamin Franklin, the American founding father, tells us two things are sure in life. What and what? Taxes and death. Yes? So we have to pay taxes because we borrow this money. That is why I've always insisted that we are having the wrong conversations. That the truth of the matter is we borrow this money, but how did we spend that money? What did we do with that money? And that is the conversation we should be having. So who is responsible for those missteps? But if you were to strictly go by the numbers, the truth of the matter is that all these numbers are trending downwards.
Yes.
And that is what Kimani is saying.
That's totally fine. Silas, I'm going to come to you. That's totally fine. That when you look at some numbers that are essentially a pointer to economic stabilization, you would say yes, but within the confines of that. And they seem to accept. When you listen to Kimani Ichung'wah, John, he said, well, the country is now pulling from what was a tough economic periods all the way in 2020, 21, 2022. We're still feeling the effects of the Russia-Ukraine war. That's fine. Some numbers were bound to come down because we did know exactly what that inflation number we're getting from where it was just imported inflation. At some point, things had to get better. Fine, and we give that to you. But let me point you out to this. When it comes to what the song was during that campaign period and what the song was when they came into parliament. And I'm going to read you a figure here that is essentially from the control of national budget. We're seeing exactly how we're borrowing money into this country. Now, Ruto's administration, in the first 6 months in office, all right, borrowed 17.4 billion shillings more than the same man that they are blaming Uhuru Kenyatta in his first 6 months in office. And they're saying, to date, if you look at the first 1 year in office for President Dr. William Ruto, he is borrowing more than Uhuru Kenyatta borrowed in his first 1 year. And they're saying, well, it's going to continue It looks like it's going to continue, all right? If that continues, then your promise of stabilizing the economy by not borrowing was essentially a downright lie, because like you're saying, absolute figures do not lie, John.
Yes.
So
yes.
why can't then Kimani Ichung'wah start in Parliament and say, but you see, on the basis of borrowing, we are going to borrow more than our predecessors. And they're saying that, just hold on, John, and they're saying that the only reason as to why we're in this problem is because the previous regime borrowed a lot of money, but you were borrowing more than them. Could you explain that to Kenyans this morning?
To pay back the money that was borrowed.
But they said we're going to stop. Look, no, John, hold on. They said they're going to stop borrowing. They're going to stop.
You can't.
They're going to stop borrowing. John, hold on. Just hold on.
Yeah.
They say they're going to stop borrowing and force the country to live within its means.
And
but they're not doing that, John.
That's why I've said,
Yes.
if you look at the budget deficit,
Yes.
has come down to 4.4%.
That's
We were running 10%
Yes.
deficit.
And I
so
do
this
agree
is
with
what
you.
happens.
Yes.
Okay. Look.
Yes.
You spend money, but there's two columns in a budget, isn't it? There's the income and the expenditure.
Yes.
Yes. So the idea is you keep your spending below your expenditure. You keep your spending below your income.
Yes.
Or within the income.
That's
yes. So anytime you spend more than you earn,
yes,
then that money has to come from somewhere, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We go step by step.
Does it?
Yes. So it has to come from somewhere.
Yes.
And this is where the budget deficit is coming from, and this is where the borrowing, those numbers, the 10 trillion shillings, is not a number that has been plucked off the clouds. Yes, it is a real number, and this is what is happening. The fact of the matter is we've been spending consistently over the last 10 years, spending more than we earn, and that money has to be borrowed.
Yes.
But we know that when you borrow money, you have to pay back. Yes, so we find ourselves in a situation where I've seen statistics from National Treasury that the redemptions this year is 1 trillion shillings. Yes, in 2023, we're going to spend, as Kenya, we're going to spend 1 trillion shillings of our taxes or hard-earned money to pay debt. Where did this debt come from? It is debt that has been accumulated in previous years. So whichever way we want to we swing and dance, the truth of the matter is we have to pay that money.
John,
when you borrow money, you have to pay back.
I'm not putting you on the spot this morning, by the way. I'm essentially just telling you that for every other argument that you have, there's a counter argument. Now, Silas,